Tonight, New York City is abuzz with bees. Hundreds of hives now dot rooftops throughout the area. But are these imported honeybees serving a key purpose, or are they actually disrupting the ecosystem and the bees, which are critical for our food supply? ABC's chief meteorologist Ginger Zee has this week's It's Not Too Late.
I'm Ginger Zee, and it's not too late. And yes, I'm almost done with my salad here on a rooftop in Manhattan, but you realize that most of what's in this bowl would not be possible without them.
Bees, key not just in pollinating our flowers, but most importantly, more than a third of the world's food. They make billions of dollars for people while feeding the world, so that's probably why you've heard so much about them dying.
But that's where the real threat can get lost in a swarm of headlines.
U.S. beekeepers lost more than 40% of their colonies between April 2019 and 2020. But the European honeybee, essentially large-scale livestock at this point, is not the only bee that we have to be concerned about.
So yes, the hobby of keeping your own bees certainly been growing, and there seems to be an exponential boom of this happening around the country, and yes, even on rooftops here in Manhattan. But the question then becomes, is it good for native bees?
There's the European honeybee.
So I asked Sarah Kornbluth, a bee biologist with the American Museum of Natural History.
Ah, yes.
Oh yeah, we got the honeybee and another little critter. Looks like a little fly in there.
How exciting. A friend. It's not that we're all concerned about just the honeybee. The native bee is the problem.
So yeah, I mean, we saw over the past decade or so colony collapse disorder, which was a suite of problems that were affecting the European honeybee. We know it was affecting the honeybee because we manage honeybees, but the effects that the same issues we're having on native bees aren't as well documented. We just can infer about what's happening to native bees. We definitely see declines in the numbers and species of bees in a lot of places.
In New York City alone, there are more than 600 active honeybee hives. But there's also at least 200 native species of bees that are flying around the 5 boroughs, and they may be the ones most in danger. 1 in 4 wild bee species is at risk of extinction in North America. 50% of Midwestern native bee species disappeared in the last century, and 4 of the bumblebee species are down 96%.
What concerns you the most? And we can step up here. For the plight of the bee.
I mean, I really feel like it's just a global issue of biodiversity loss. So I'm focusing on bees and other pollinators, but as we lose biodiversity, we can't get it back.
I'm gonna beekeep up.
This is one of the hundreds of rooftop beehives in New York City. Yes, it is on the 35th floor of a midtown hotel.
Why is rooftop beekeeping something we should do?
Well, it adds pollinators to the air. So we're looking at about 120,000 bees between the 2 boxes. And my hunch is that everybody's rooftop garden and the flowers and any vegetation are going to be doing better in Central Park because of these honeybees. The house bee comes up, fills one of these cells up with nectar.
Eric Cannon used to be a producer at ABC.
Like 80% moisture down to about 18% moisture.
And he gave it up for beekeeping.
You're a producer at ABC, you have all this going on. It has to be really mesmerizing, beekeeping, to take you away.
Yeah, it is. So it gets inside you somehow, and it's very calming, very pleasant.
For those of us that might not be ready to leave our job and dive straight in, there's a service called Best Bees, which is how we met Tom Whitburn. He's a New York City beekeeper that installs and manages beehives on your property.
We're not quite at what he called that tipping point where we have to worry about competing, Italian honeybees with local native pollinators, because there's still plenty of resources that are out there for everybody.
Even in a place like New York City.
Even in a place like New York City, believe it or not, yeah.
Is putting a hive on each rooftop in New York City the answer?
Ooh. New York City isn't a monoculture, and it doesn't require any pollination by European honeybees. As long as we provide plenty of floral resources and nesting habitat for native bees, they will thrive here, and they will complete all of the pollination services that we require.
I've definitely never driven one of these.
A few years back, I followed one of the operations that rents out their hives to farmers.
Have a nice ride, bees. Good pollinating to you.
The hordes of European honeybees that get trucked around our nation with about as many stops as a startup rock band. And managed pollinators are still critical today. There's actually a new report out this week that highlighted the crops that are at risk if we don't properly pollinate them. 90% of kiwis, pumpkins, watermelons could be wiped out without the bee.
So if someone here wants to help, probably best thing is just to put a plant in that bees thrive on.
I mean, you know what? A lot of the time people want to know what are the best plants for bees, but it's not just bees for the food web.
Pollinators.
And it's not even just pollinators, because it's the entire food web we need to support, and so it's any native plant.
Yeah.
Right? So all of the plants and animals evolve together to be able, you know, and they're constantly fighting this battle to try and eat each other, basically. So it's the plants that evolved here that can be eaten by the plant eaters here. Then those can be eaten by the birds and so on. So really, I'm going to suggest that people plant native plants that are native to our area and that are a wild type, not a horticultural variety.
So the only real way to help for most of us is to plant plants that bees like. Make sure they're native and pesticide free. And then it really won't be too late.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.